Hey there, my farm name is 500 Raw Power. This is my guide for my dual wield shocker. Currently at level 70 in-game. My in-game name for this character is Puck the Magic Dragon. And I'm gonna show you guys a little bit things, some things about this build which I think are interesting. This is the first build I've been building a guide for because I think it's the first build that I got to end game with like effectively, and a build that I made myself. And first important thing about this build is it's a dual wield Axe build. I wanted to go with dual wield Axe mainly because I think it looks cool to dual wield axes, but also of course because I was thinking about interesting ways to play the game, and axes have the interesting characteristic of not having any implicit modifiers, but having a very high base physical damage. So I wanted to use this high base physical damage while dual wielding to and make use of that in some way, in an interesting way. And the way I thought of making use of that was to use the physical to lightning jump. Physical to lightning was introduced in 1.3, and it's a way to scale lightning damage off of your physical damage. It's the first way to do that in this game from patch 1.3. Before that, you could only have like flat lightning damage. So I use cleave and dual strike, which are classic dual wield skills. So cleave for AoE, dual strike for single target. They have the usual melee gems like multi strike and melee physical damage on both of them. But the other gem is physical to lightning, as I said on the setup. It allows me to scale lightning damage off of physical damage. So that's interesting because I can invest only on physical damage and then get lots of lightning damage in return. I actually get more lightning damage than physical damage because it converts 50% from physical to lightning and then adds more lightning that also scales from physical damage on top of that. This is interesting because if you look at sources of lightning damage, for instance, look at the Wrath aura which I use. Currently I add 10 to 167 additional lightning damage if I use Wrath. So if you look at it, it's a kind of a random roll. It can roll like 10 or 160. So it can do either little damage or a lot of damage. But if you scale your lightning damage from your physical damage, which has a higher base, then you kind of don't have this problem. You can do more consistent lightning damage. So if you look at the tooltip for cleave here, it's doing right now on my main hand 387 665 lightning damage. So it doesn't have a low roll, it's more consistent. Of course my lightning damage is a little higher than that. I have to turn on Wrath, and I also use Herald of Thunder. So if these two I have a little higher, it's a little bit less consistent because these two skills, they add lightning damage in that inconsistent way. However, sorry. However, I still have very consistent lightning damage. So if these two offensive skills turned on, I have 7.8 DPS on cleave and 9.7 DPS on dual strike. This is on level 70, so I think it's pretty decent for now. Still want to scale this a lot more, of course. But that's it for offense. Now, interesting mechanic about this build is I don't go for critical strikes. Axes have a very low critical strike base chance of 5%, so you need a lot of investment to deal lots of critical strikes. You need a lot of critical strike chance from the passive tree and gear, and you will also need a lot of accuracy because it's a strength based build, and strength doesn't give you any accuracy. We don't have lots of dexterity, which gives accuracy. So I just thought it would be a very big investment to go for crit, so I did not go for crit. Instead, I chose Resolute Technique, which is your hits can't be evaded and never deal critical strikes. So I don't have to worry about accuracy, which I have very little of, but I don't deal critical strikes. So of course, not dealing critical strikes is a problem that we have to deal with because the main reason for using lightning damage is to shock enemies and then do additional damage because of the shock debuff. So we have to go with shock chance. That's why I chose the Scion start, because it allows me to access, of course, both the Marauder tree, which is my main tree, where most of my damage and health comes from, but at the same time go towards static blows, which of course gives 15% chance to shock. So I go for a chance to shock instead of going for crit, and I get 15% there and another 5% from Elementalist in the Templar tree, which I go to. So in total I have 20% chance to shock. The other link I have on Cleave is Elemental Proliferation. So when you use AoE with 20% chance to shock and Elemental Proliferation, you pretty much shock everything. You're gonna see on the gameplay that I'm gonna show later in this video. I shock everything on packs of white and blue mobs, so 20% shock chance is already enough for that. But I also want to shock bosses with this build, because I mean, if I shock only trash mobs and I don't shock bosses, I feel like the build is kind of pointless. So I want to be able to shock bosses. I'll show some gameplay where I shock Cole and Piety. I shock Cole very consistently, pretty much for the entire fight, but I can't shock Piety too consistently yet. I do get a few shocks in, but not many. So Dual Strike doesn't have Elemental Proliferation on it, so I have to rely on 20% chance to shock. Basically 1 out of each 5 attacks I do will shock. Of course it has high attack speed. Right now it's 0.22 attack time, as you can see here. So I can get 5 attacks really fast, and at least one of them should shock statistically. But then I need lots of lightning damage and maybe a little bit of shock duration to be able to consistently shock a boss and Piety. So this is something I have to improve on in the future. The last mechanic that I want to talk about is my mana management for this build, because usually for melee builds you either want to go for blood magic, so you spend life instead of mana for skills, or you want to use a blood magic gem on your setup. But you will notice I don't have any of those. I don't have a blood magic gem, and I don't have the blood magic passive. That's because I cast my cleave and my dual strike and all my skills except my curse from my mana pool, but I don't have any mana regeneration for that. What I do is my third aura is Determination, so I use Determination for an extra armor. So with Determination, Wrath, and Herald of Thunder, these 3 together, linked with a level 20 reduced mana, it has to be level 20, and with a final touch of 4% reduced mana reserved from the tree, I can reserve 99% of my mana. So I have left 1% of my mana to cast all my skills. So to make this possible, I have a set of Euron rings. So you'll notice all of them have -8 mana cost of skills, -8 mana cost, -8 mana cost. And additionally, I have this node here, this cluster here from the 3 with Unrelenting. And all of these nodes give you reduced mana cost of skills on a percentage. So what this does is this percentage here, which is 19% in total, gets applied to the total cost of your skills. So suppose my cleave costs about 30 mana, actually it costs about 30 mana, but with this reduction of 19%, it gets reduced from this 30%, and after this reduction, the rings and amulet from Irion apply. So the flat reduction they apply is after the calculation of the total mana cost. So this leaves me with a cleave that costs 4 mana to cast, which is exactly how much mana I have. 1% of my mana is 4. Dual Strike has no mana cost at all. It's on a 4-link setup. Leap Slam has no mana cost at all in a 2-link setup. And Conductivity is cast with Blood Magic. Conductivity is simply too high mana costs. I can't use it with this strategy. So I just link Conductivity with Blood Magic and faster casting. To cast it faster. I have no mana regeneration whatsoever in any gear, and in my tree nothing. So my just natural base mana regeneration with this mana pool of 417 is 7.3, which is enough to cast my cleave, which is only 4 mana. So I can just cast cleave without any problems. Sometimes I get a blank, but usually I can just cast cleave indefinitely. Saw a blank there, but as I improve the character a little bit, I can maybe manage to not have any blanks, but usually I can just cast it consistently. If necessary, if I get a 6 link, for example, which is going to increase the mana cost of cleave, then I can get more reduced mana cost of skills from the tree, like Righteous Decree right here, 6%, maybe Dynamo. These are nodes that are all close to my path on the tree, so I can get them if necessary. But that's pretty much it for the build. The key aspects of the build are shock chance from static blows and elementalist, resolute technique and unwavering stance, so I cannot be stunned, stack lots of life, stack lots of physical damage. Axes are very good because they have very high base physical damage, and the nodes for physical damage for axes are just incredible. Look at cleaving, 35% increased physical damage with axes. You don't have 35% increased physical damage anywhere else in this tree except for axes. I'm also trying to build a little bit of armor for extra defense. My current armor with determination on is 3.5k. If I drink a granite flask, it goes up to 16k. So I'm investing a little bit in armor. I'm gonna get these nodes here with unwielding, which apart from a lot of armor gives me 20% reduced extra damage from critical strikes, which is really good. So I'm investing a little bit in armor, not that much because it has diminishing returns, but just to have a decent base armor. And that's it for the build pretty much. I'm gonna leave you with a gameplay, first with a fight against Cole and Piety, so you can see that how consistently I shock these two bosses, and then a little bit of gameplay on a Wharf map, which is a level 67 map. So thank you for watching, hope you liked the build, and if you have any questions, just post on the forum thread, which I'm going to open for this build. Thank you very much.
Has no one managed to kill you yet? Then it seems you've earned my personal attention.